So, welcome to MDM4U, Mathematics of Data Management. And what I hope to do in this short little video is to give you a bit of an introduction to the course. This introduction is going to focus on the first half of the course kind of specifically, but the big thing we want to answer is, what is this course about? And in my opinion, this course is kind of divided into two halves. There's statistics and there is probability. And those are the two halves that I've divided the course into. And then at the end, you're going to do a project, and the project is going to involve some probability, it's going to involve some statistics. It's probably going to involve a lot more statistics than probability, so we're kind of going to put it closer to the statistics part of the course here. So first half of the course focuses on statistics. Then once we hit midterm, we switch over and we do probability. And at that same time, you're going to start working away on your project. And the entire second half of the course, you're going to learn probability and hopefully make progress on your culminating project at the same time. All of this is reflected in how your mark is going to be calculated. The term work is going to be 70%. Of that, about half of it is statistics. You see 15% and 15% for statistical analysis and organizing data, so 30% on statistics. For probability, you can see 15% for counting and probability, 15% for probability distributions. These are kind of the main topics that are covered in each of these sections. So 30% there. And then there's a statistics midterm that you're going to write at the end of the organizing data section of the course. So you'll do statistical analysis, organizing data, then you'll write your statistics midterm. That's worth 10%. And these sort of three things are what are going to appear on the midterm mark that gets submitted to universities if you're applying to college or university this semester. After that, we move into the probability section, 30% counting probability and probability distributions. Then at the end of the course, you will write an exam just on the probability section of the course. Okay? And you can see the project here sort of divided in half. There are a series of things that you're going to do along the way, sort of your research and discussing how your project is going with me. We organize those into proposals. And finally, at the very end, you're going to do a report for your project. So those things together make up 20% of your mark, with 10% of it being summative. So we start with statistics. Now, what is statistics? Well, the simplest way to put it is, statistics is a way of obtaining information from data using mathematical operations. Now, you might sort of think that data and information mean the same thing, but they're used slightly differently in this context here. When we talk about data, we talk about the raw material that statistics works on. So this can be tables of numbers, lists of data, counts, that kind of thing. Information is the relevant sort of conclusion that we want to draw from it. Not even a conclusion, the relevant measures that we want to get from that raw data. We have to do something to this data to try to answer the questions that we want to answer. And it's by doing these things, these mathematical operations called statistics, that we get some information. And then we can use this information to draw conclusions about whatever the situation is that we're trying to analyze here. So statistics, we're going to have two major topics here, two major sections: statistical analysis and organizing data. We're going to start with a little bit of organizing data, doing graphs, tables, just taking your data and putting it into a sort of a visual form or organizing it. We're going to look at techniques that you can use to analyze your data, so 1D and 2D statistics. 1D statistics is basically when you have measured sort of one thing about each of the things that you are investigating. So you have a bunch of people and you have measured their height, or you have measured just their weight. You've only measured that one thing and you are analyzing it. We will look at 2D statistics, where for each thing that you're looking at, you measure two things. Okay, you measure their height and their weight, and you check to see if those two things, if there's a relationship between them, if they're correlated. As we're doing this, we're going to spend a lot of time working with data analysis software, primarily spreadsheets, to organize the data. Once we've learned some techniques for actually analyzing data, we'll look at we'll sort of go back a step and look at how you get the data that you have been analyzing. So we'll look at techniques for collecting data, primarily surveys for primary data, or looking sort of online for secondary data. And we'll also spend some time talking about the different types of data that you can have and you can analyze. This is all building up to, we want to cast a critical eye on not only the analysis that we've done, but on the data that we've collected, and sort of compile a list of things that we have to take into account in order to make sure that our data is reliable, so that we can do a reliable analysis, so we can get reliable information from our statistical analysis. Statistics, in a sense, is all about looking backwards. Okay? We have this big pool of data that we are working with. Okay? And what we want to try to do is figure out what sort of situation would have produced this data that we have measured. So we take a bunch of people and we measure their height, and we want to figure out, well, what does this tell us about the heights of everybody who's in the school, let's say, or in the country or something like that. So we are measuring things and we are trying to figure out what could have caused the data that we have. Okay? In the second half of the course, we're going to look at probability. And a probability is essentially the opposite operation. It's about predicting things, about looking forward. We know a lot about a specific situation. We're given a lot of information about it, and we are trying to predict what is going to happen if we were to go ahead and collect some data from this. What would happen based on our understanding of the situation that we have been given. Okay? So what you're going to find throughout this course is that statistics and probability ask slightly different questions about very, very similar situations. So one of these situations might be your sock drawer. Okay? So your sock drawer could be super, super organized, like this one over here on the left. It could be kind of all jumbled up, or it could be extremely jumbled up, where the socks have been just tossed in there randomly. I think most people's sock drawers look kind of like this, or at least the socks have been put together in pairs. But for some reason in statistics and probability questions, they sort of assume that everybody just tosses their socks in randomly, so you can pull out individual socks. I don't know, kind of weird. But statistics might ask a question like this. Okay, let's say you pulled 10 random socks from the drawer. You got 4 white socks, 6 red socks, and 2 black socks. If there are a total of 100 socks in the drawer, how many of them are red? So what you're doing is you're taking a sample. Okay, that's your 4 white, your 6 red, and your 2 black socks. That's the data that you have measured, and you're trying to figure out, okay, what does this tell us about what we call the population, or all of the socks in the drawer? What does the data that we have collected tell us about the situation that would have given rise to us collecting the sample? Now, a probability question might be something like this. If we know there are 20 white socks, 20 black socks, and 50 red socks in the drawer, what is the likelihood that if we take 3 socks at random, they're all the same color? So in this case, they've told us, by giving us these numbers here, what all of the socks in the drawer are. And we're trying to predict what is going to happen if we do something or we collect some data from this sock drawer. Okay. So here is a sort of a more detailed breakdown of what's going on in the statistics half of the course. Okay. You can see divided into sections, statistical analysis, and organizing data. These sections are further divided into units, which are just sort of a handy way of organizing them. So our first unit is one variable statistics. For each of these, we're given an estimate of the number of days that it should take you. Okay? And I've supplied you with both a target date, which is the date that you should complete all of the work for that unit or those 2 units on, and also a deadline date. The deadline date is the date that the material will sort of disappear from D2L, and you'll have to email me to get access to it again. In each unit, there will be a number of little assignments that you're going to hand in. There'll be drop boxes associated with those. And typically you have to submit them to the drop box in order to get access to the next unit here. So within each unit there are lessons, videos, kind of like this one here, and there are also a number of practice questions that you can practice your skills on. Those practice questions don't need to be handed in, just the assignments get submitted for assessment. When you've reached the end of 4 units, okay, you will write a test which tests your knowledge on all of those 4 units. Okay, and the test will probably be online. Then once you've done that test, you can move on to the next section. Same sort of thing again. Okay, you'll look at collecting data, you'll look at thinking critically about data. Again, a number of little assignments here. Okay, and finally a test here. So the weighting of all of these things within each section is given by these numbers right here. In the organizing data section, which altogether is worth 15% of your mark, the test is worth 50%. The assignments together are also worth 50% of that 15%. So you can see the breakdown there, 20, 10, and then 20. Finally, once you have done both of those unit tests and all of those assignments, you can write the statistics midterm. This you will write at your school, probably on pencil and paper, and you'll need to make arrangements to have somebody supervise you while you write that. And notice that the dates here have just been set at April 20th, April 20th. I'll have to look into whether we can give a little bit of flexibility in terms of what date you write that midterm. But for now, plan to have everything done by April 20th, so you can write that midterm.